All right, Beruchim Abayim. Welcome back. Everyone on Zoom, they see you see the text, right?
Yes.
Yes, no. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay, welcome back. So, last week we started the introduction to Sefer HaMisvot, and we explained, right? We really opened up a window into the mind of the Rambam, right? Where he's planning his masterpiece, the book that you're holding in front of you, his masterpiece on halacha. He wants to go through all the halacha, bring you the bottom line of every single halacha brought and decided in the Talmud, Bavli, Yerushalmi, Sifri, the Mishnah, everything. And he says, in order to do that and to not miss anything, first I need to do what? I need to list who remembers? List the mitzvot. All right. Now, there were already a list of mitzvot, but what's the problem with the list of mitzvot that was already published? It wasn't really accurate. And so, in order to list the mitzvot, first he needs to prove why his list of mitzvot is the correct list of mitzvot. And so the foundational work in order to even begin the Mishneh Torah is this book that he wrote, Sefer HaMisvot, the book of the Misvot. We went through in the introduction, we saw exactly why and how he did it. What we didn't get to at the end, he has 14 general rules as what decides what should be part of the list of 613 mitzvot, right? So I'll just quickly go through some of them. He then has 30 pages explaining why these are the 14 rules, which we're not going to deal with. That's like an entire course on itself. He says, Haklal Harishon, the first rule. This is not in today's page, this is in last week's. I'm just going very quickly. שאין ראוי למנות בסכום הזה את המצוות שהן מדרבנן. Right? It's you shouldn't list in the sixth list of 613 mitzvot that were rabbinical enactments and decrees, such as Hanukkah and Purim, right? They are mitzvot, but they're not one of the 613 mitzvot דאורייתא. שלא כלל השני, לא כל מה שנלמד באחד מ13 מידות שהתורה נדרשת בהן או בריבוי ראוי למנותו. It says, not everything that you find in the Talmud where the Hachamim learned using one of the 13 principles isn't necessarily a mitzvah or should be part of the mitzvot deoraita. As we learned in previous courses, something called an ambiguous law, right? Where we have a mitzvah and the Hachamim, they have the authority to teach us halachot or how to perform that mitzvah using the 13 midot. So not everything that we see that has the 13 midot is necessarily one of the 613 mitzvot. It could be things that they decreed. It could be things that are we call it divrei sofrim or derabanan, and it could be halachot on how to perform a certain mitzvah. הכלל שאין ראוי למנות מצוות שאינן נוהגות לדורות. Right? We don't want to include in the 613 mitzvot that were temporary, such as on Friday you collect a double portion of the man. Right? That's not relevant for all of Jewish history, only for those 40 years in the desert. שאין ראוי למנות צווים הכוללים את כל המצוות. Right? There are mitzvot that says be careful to keep the Torah. Right? And that repeats itself throughout the entire Torah. Right? We're not going to take every single instance that it said follow the Torah and list that as an independent mitzvah. All right? I'm not going to go through all the 14 rules. I do recommend learning them on your own time. we said there's 14 rules here, and we showed that how he made this the foundation of his halachic work. What was the purpose of listing all of the 613 mitzvot? Was to make sure that he doesn't forget any single mitzvah. So let's see how careful he was. If you open up the Mishneh Torah to page 6, right, we're in the introduction to the Mishneh Torah. After he wrote this entire book, Sefer HaMitzvot, and we'll see a few examples of how he decided certain mitzvot should be part of the list, but there's a whole book here justifying every single mitzvah, why it's part of the 613 mitzvot. And in page 6, in the introduction, you'll see just the list without any explanation, because he already did all that groundwork in Sefer HaMitzvot. So you see, it starts with mitzvot aseh, aleph, bet, gimel, right? Aleph, the first mitzvah, lida sheyesham Eloha, to know that there is a God, right? We learned this already in Hilchot Yesodei Torah. We'll get back to that soon. And you can skim through the pages. You'll see the list of all the positive mitzvot, all the mitzvot aseh, until you get to the list of mitzvot lo ta'aseh, right? And then, if you skip through to the last, I think page 23 or something, with the list of all the mitzvot ends, what do you see next? It says the structure of the book. Right? You see that? מבנה הספר. ראיתי לחלק חיבור זה ל14 ספרים. Right? I am going to I'm going to structure this book. It's going to have 14 volumes. Right? What's the first volume? The first one is Sefer Hamada. Right? And then if you pass that, you see Sefer Hamada. You see on the top, it's Sefer Hamada. What page is it? I have a different edition, so I can't tell you what page it's on. 23, where it says Sefer Hamada. Right, now look. Hilchotav Hamesh. There's 5 halachot included in Sefer Hamada. Hilchot Yesodei HaTorah, the fundamentals of the Torah. Hilchot Deot, the halachot regarding your behavior, your character. Hilchot Talmud Torah, studying Torah. All right, Hilchot Avodah Zarah, Hilchot Teshuvah. And now, look, it goes Hilchot Yesodei Torah. Let's go to the first one. Hilchot Yesodei Torah, Yesh Bichlalan 10 Mitzvot. In Hilchot Yesodei Torah, we're going to address 10 Mitzvot. 6 Mitzvot Aseh, ו4 Mitzvot Lo Ta'aseh. 6 positive Mitzvot. You have to do this. You have to do this, right? And 4 mitzvot lo ta'aseh. Don't do this. Don't do that. What's the first one? Lida sheyesham Eloha. To know that there is a God. When we first started Hilchot Yesodei Torah, right? We said it came into halacha. I think it was Vav, right? Explaining first thing you need to know that there's a primary being, and He is the creator of the entire universe. Right? And then he starts to explain what that is. And then he says at the end, and knowing this is a positive mitzvah. Right? V'di'at davar zeh mitzvat aseh. Shene'emar, as it says, Anochi Adonai Elohecha. Right? The first of the 10 commandments. Right? Anochi Adonai Elohecha. Right? How do we know that this is actually a mitzvah? Well, let's see. You don't have this. It's not printed in your pages. If we open up the first mitzvah in Sefer HaMitzvot, where he justifies how he counts this as one of the 613 mitzvot, Hu shesivanu b'di'at ha'elohut. This is the mitzvah where he instructed us to know God. The hu sheneda, and this is that we should know or acknowledge. Sheyesham ilah v'siba, that there is a primary being. Hu hapoel et kol hanimsaim. And he is the one that activates, right, everything in existence. V'hu omro yit'aleh, and this we learn from the pasuk, Anochi Adonai Elohecha. Right? I, Adonai Elohecha, am your God. ובסוף גמר מכות, אמרו 613 מצוות נאמרו לו למשה בסיני. At the end of Masechet Makot in the Talmud, the Chachamim say 613 mitzvot were instructed by Moshe in Sinai. Ma'ikira, where do we learn this from? What pasuk do we learn this from? That there's 613 mitzvot. It says, Ma'ikira, Torah sivalanu Moshe. We learn this from the pasuk. Moshe instructed us the Torah. Klomar, minyan Torah. Meaning, he instructed us how many mitzvot? It says the gematria of the word Torah. Is that 613? No, it's not. 50. Vehikshu, and they challenged this statement. Vehikshu al ze v'amiru, and they said, Torah begimatria achi havai. How much is the gematria of the word Torah? Shitmea v'hadsar havai. It's 611. So where do you get 613? It says, Vayitahat teshuvah, and they responded, Anochi Adonai Elohecha, ve'lo yelecha mipi hagevura shema'um. He says there are two mitzvot that Moshe didn't instruct us because we heard it directly from God. Right? It says, Anochi Adonai Elohecha. When we were standing in Sinai, we heard two mitzvot ourselves. One of them was Anochi Adonai Elohecha, and the other one was Lo Yelecha Elohim Acherim Al Panai.
Anochi yesh ani. It's different. Ani, Anochi.
So, yeah, but it says Anochi. When it says Anochi, first of all, this is what he's saying. He's saying this is proof that the mitzvah or the diber, the first commandment, Anochi Adonai Elohecha, is one of the 613 mitzvot. Because when the Chachamim say we receive 613 mitzvot, we learn 613 from Torah, Sivalanu Moshe, say, but Torah is only 611, so how do we get to 613? They explicitly said that the statement, Anochi Adonai Elohecha, and the statement, Lo Yelecha Elohim Acherim Al Panai, are mitzvot, either 612 and 613, or really 1 and 2. Really, it's not 1 and 2. It's the first positive mitzvah and the first lo ta'aseh, the first negative mitzvah. All right? So, he brings an explicit statement from the Hachamim. First of all, everybody we saw agrees that there's 613 mitzvot. And he proves to you that Anochi Adonai Elohecha is one of the 613 mitzvot, as evident from the statement of the Chachamim. So here you see, Ki Anochi Adonai Miklal 613 mitzvot. Here we see that Anochi Adonai Elohecha is one of the 613 mitzvot. V'hu tzivui lidah kmo shebe'arnu. And this is the mitzvah to know or acknowledge, learn and substantiate your belief in what God is, right? That is the first mitzvah of the 613 mitzvot. Any questions so far?
So, okay. It's okay.
Okay, so we see how meticulous and how accurate the Rambam was when structuring his book. First, he wrote an entire book to justify his list of 613 mitzvot, and for every single mitzvah, he brings these kind of proofs. The Sifra says this explicitly, the Hachamim say this explicitly, and then he explains more or less what the mitzvah is without getting into too much detail, because all that detail is meant for the Mishneh Torah, where he goes into the details of all the halachot concerning every single mitzvah. So we see, first he wrote the book justifying, then he brought the list of all the mitzvot in the introduction, and then in the introduction still, he structured the 14 volumes of his book, telling you every single mitzvah where it's going to be defined in his book. And then if you open up to the first page of the actual, as you see this, every single book, it gives you all the mitzvot that are going to be in that book. And then you open up the actual first page of Hilchot Yisodei Torah. You see that? What page is that? Who's the first one who found it? Sorry? 33, 34. All right? This is Hilchot Yisodei Torah, right? Hilchot Yisodei Torah. Yesh bichlalan eser mitzvot. As we saw previously, he did copy and paste to what he did over there to make sure he doesn't forget anything. This is the list of the mitzvot. The first one, Lida sheyesh ham Eloah. The second one, which is Anochi Adonai Elohecha. The second one, Shelo ya'aleh b'machshava sham Eloah zulat Hashem. That there is no other God other than God, right? That's the first of the negative mitzvot, right? And he defines, all the mitzvot, the 10 mitzvot that he's going to discuss throughout these few chapters of Hilchot Yisodei Torah. And now, if you look at Halacha Vav says, V'di'at davar zeh, and knowing this, Mitzvat aseh is a positive mitzvah, Shne'emar, Anochi Adonai Elohecha. V'chol ha'ma'aleh al da'ato shesham Eloah acher chutz mizeh, anyone who thinks that there is another being, right, godly being other than God, avar belo ta'aseh, he transgresses a negative mitzvah, lo ta'aseh. As it says, lo yelecha Elohim acherim al panai. So here it's defined within the halachot themselves. And this is basically how he teaches all the halachot concerning all the 613 mitzvot in that one book that you have in front of you, 1,000 chapters of halachot, explaining the 613 mitzvot, everything you need to know about the oral Torah. Now, in the Moreh, the guide for the perplexed, the Rambam, we said there's one number that he really likes. 14 volumes of the Mishneh Torah, 14 rules of how to decide what mitzvah is part of the 613 mitzvot. Who remembers what else is 14? You saw here. Acham Mordechai wrote made a little sketch over here of Eretz Yisrael, right? This is the Rambam in the Mishneh Torah also has sketches. After say Chacham Mordechai, your sketch is much better than the Rambam's. He also has sketches within the Mishneh Torah, also comes out to 14. In the Moreh Nevuchim, at the end, the last section, he divides all the mitzvot. The last section discusses ta'ameh mitzvot. What is the purpose or the rationale of the different mitzvot? And he divides them into 14 categories. All right, so what we're going to do now is, until Shavuot, and maybe after Shavuot, we'll see, is we're going to go through the different categories of mitzvot, see the different mitzvot there, right? We're not going to go in depth into each one of the mitzvot, obviously. We're just going to see what the mitzvot are, and I want you to pay attention to the structure. All right? So, we're here at the beginning of the page from today. HaMitzvot, right? Sha'akvuza harishona kolelet, right? The first category of mitzvot, vehen hadeot shemaninu beilchot yisodei haTorah. The first category of mitzvot are those that we mentioned in Hilchot Yisodei HaTorah, V'ta'am shel kulam barur, and the rationale behind them is very, very apparent. It's very obvious. It says these are the deot, the intellectual mitzvot, the things that you need to know, right, as part of the Torah. Im titbonen bahen achat, if you investigate these mitzvot one at a time, timsa et nechnunota shel ota de'ah, right? Then you will understand that concept, that idea. What are these mitzvot? One, that God exists, He's the primary being, that there is none other than God. What else? Who remembers? That God is one, there's only one God, right? And that there aren't multiple gods, and we'll see. Vishehi davar muhach, and these are substantiated ideas, philosophical ideas. What else does it include? Limud v'kibud hamilamdim, also to study and to honor the teachers. Hokarat hayeda l'sham hasagato, and to value the wisdom of the Torah and to make it lovable to you. וכן יש תועלת ברורה לכל הזירוז והדגשה ללמוד וללמד. And so to all the mitzvot regarding studying Torah and encouraging to study Torah, כי אם לא יושג ידע, לא יושגו מה מעשה מתוקן ולא דעה נכונה. Because if you don't acquire this knowledge, right, then you won't know, like we see now, whenever we study in the book of Shemuel, right? Every time the people resorted back to pagan philosophy, depending on segulot, depending on charms and things like that, that always led to disaster for them until they rejected all of that and then were able to take responsibility and progress. So he says the most fundamental mitzvot is, first of all, your mindset. What are the correct things to believe? What are the incorrect things to reject? Because you won't know, you won't have the fundamental ideas of how to behave if you don't have the most basic understanding of primary being, right? That there are no intermediaries. גם לכיבוד נושא התורה יש תועלת ברורה. And also honoring those who carry the Torah, meaning the great Chachamim, has a very, very obvious reason to it. כי אם לא תוחדר בנפשות ורוממות כלפיהם, לא יישמעו דבריהם באשר לדעות ולמעשים שהם ידריכו אליהם. Right? Because if we don't have this fear called yirat haromimut, this honor of the Chachamim, then we won't listen to them when they rebuke us and when they tell us where we strayed. המצווה הזאת כוללת כל סיגות תכונות הבושה, right? This mitzvah or this category of mitzvot also includes having humility. כוונתי למה שנאמר מפני שיבה תקום, to honor your elders, having humility towards elders, having humility towards your teachers. All this is part of this first category of mitzvot. And here we see Hilchot Yesodei HaTorah. This is mostly what he was talking about. Yesh bichlalan 10 mitzvot, as we saw before. וארבע מצוות, right, 6 מצוות עשה, וארבע מצוות לא תעשה, וזהו פירתן. And these are the mitzvot. We'll go through them quickly. לדעת שיש שם אלוה, to know that there is a God. ב' שלא יעלה במחשבה שיש שם אלוה אחר, זולתי השם, that there is no, not to consider the option that there may be another entity, right, that is divine, that is godly. ליחדו, is to understand the unity of God. We went into details of all of these in the previous course on the fundamentals of the Torah. Le'ahavot, to love God. Who remembers what is the mitzvah of loving God? How do you love God? But what was Maimonides' way to achieving? It's not just le'havo, aval also lira mimeno, of achieving love and fear of God. Studying sciences. Studying sciences, studying how God operates in the world, right? Triggers your thirst for knowledge and knowledge of God. Lekadesh Shemo, to sanctify the name of God. We actually didn't study that chapter. Shelo lehalel et Shemo, to not to desecrate the name of God. Shelo le'abed devarim shenikra Shemo alehem, not to destroy things that have God's name on them, like a Sefer Torah, right? That's why Kitvei Kodesh, holy writings, you don't just discard and throw in the garbage. They go to Geniza, to be archived, to be properly disposed of. Lishmoa min hanavi hamidaber bishmo, to follow the instructions of the prophets that speak in the name of God. Those halachot we studied, right? Shelo lenasoto, and also not to try the Navi. Once he's been established as a Navi, we don't need to make him prove himself to us every single time he comes to us with a message, right? He says, so these are all the 10 mitzvot that he counted in Hilchot Yesodei Torah. Besides that, he also says, בכלל קבוצה זו הציווי שנצטווה להישבע בשמו, also swearing in the name of God when you need to, and of course the other side, the lo ta'aseh, is not to swear in the name of God in vain, right? So, and also teshuvah. I cut out a lot of the chapter. It's a really long chapter in the Moreh Nevuchim. He says also teshuvah, and if you look at Hilchot Teshuvah at the beginning, Mizvah Aseh Achat. All of Hilchot Teshuvah comes to discuss one mitzvah. Which mitzvah? Vehu sheyashuv ha'choteh mechet'o lifnei Hashem ve'yitvadeh. That's the mitzvah that a person who transgresses the Torah, to do vidui, to repent, and vidui means to actually what's the word in English? Sorry, I forgot. To confess his sin when he comes to bring the korban, right? To do a vidui. The vidui is the mitzvah of teshuvah. When we do vidui in Yom Kippurim, that is the mitzvah of doing teshuvah, of confessing your sins and accepting that you're not going to return to this behavior again. All right? Again, this is all of Hilchot Teshuvah deals with the details of how to perform this mitzvah correctly. Over here, we're just counting the mitzvot. So mitzvah teshuvah is one mitzvot under this first of the 14 categories of mitzvot, which has to do with the right opinions and thoughts that you need to have. Because what is teshuvah in essence? Teshuvah in essence is the idea that you have free will, and if you made a mistake, then you are able to repent and correct your mistake. That's the overview of the first category of mitzvot. Any questions before you move on? Okay. המצוות שהקבוצה השנייה כוללת. The second category mitzvot, הן כל המצוות שמנינו בהלכות עבודה זרה. These are all the mitzvot that we counted in הלכות עבודה זרה. Before getting into the rationale of this second category of mitzvot, let's just take a look quickly. Ilchot Avodah Zarah, or Ilchot Avodah Kochavim v'chukotehem, you see there's three, the page is divided into three columns. Yesh bichlalan hamishim va'achat mitzvot. This includes 51 mitzvot. Out of the 613 mitzvot, 51 of them are regarding Avodah Zarah. Shete mitzvot aseh, two of them are positive mitzvot, like to destroy something, to actually do something, and the 49 others, ve'arba'im ve'tesha mitzvot, lo ta'aseh, of forbidding you from doing something. V'zeu peratan. Of course, we're not going to go through the entire list. Shelo lifnot achar avodah zarah. Aleph, don't stray after avodah zarah. Right? Shelo latur achar hirur halev uriyat ha'enaim. Right? Not even to stray in your mind, right? And the things that you see. I mean, don't be fooled by magic tricks that you see to think that there's any validity in avodah zarah. Shelo legadef, right? Not to speak profanity towards God. Shelo ya'avod ota kederech avodata, not to perform any established worship of avodah zarah. Shelo yishtachavela, not to bow down to the avodah zarah. Shelo la'asot pesel la'atzmo, not to create an image for yourself. Shelo la'asot pesel afilu la'acherim, and not to create an image even if it's not for yourself but for others. These are two separate transgressions: to create an image for yourself or to create an image for someone else. Shelo la'asot surot afilu lanoi, not to make images or pictures, it's really of a person, even if it's just for decoration, like the face of a person. Again, all there's chapters defining how to perform or not to perform avodah zarah, right? This isn't the place to go into the details. But let's go back to right, the Kvutza HaSheniya, back to the bottom of page 1. Barur shematrat kulan, what is the purpose of all of these, was it 52 mitzvot we said? Lihinatzel mita'uyot avodah zarah, in order to protect ourselves from the mistakes of pagan worship. Umuda'ut shguyot acherot shenilvu la'avodah zarah, and also to protect ourselves from other wrong ideas that stem from avodah zarah or are similar to it, kemo me'onen, like forecasting or astrology. Umnahesh means I'm going to say an incantation in order to bring health or something. Umchashef v'chover haver, right? Umchashef is sorcery, meaning doing some sort of exactly, black magic, all sorts of rituals to cause, I don't know, someone to love me or someone to die or who knows what, right? V'acherot kayosef bahen, and other similar kind of things. Kach lemashal, for instance, הם מכוונים לאסוף צמח מסוים בזמן מסוים, right? In order to bring some sort of prosperity, they have these instructions to gather certain types of flowers or certain types of vegetables at a specific time. או לקחת מדבר פלוני כמות כזאת, ומאחר כמות כזאת, or to take, this much of this substance and this much of this substance, like in the movies, one raven's eye and one frog leg, all that. Zeu tichum nirhav me'od. This is a very, very wide category. There's like so many books written on all these different types of spells. I'm gonna break it down to you to 3 types, right? The first, מה שקשור בדבר מן הנמצאים. Let's skip it. I'm sure pretty much everyone here is is familiar enough and understands the absurdity in many of these rituals. These are the types of witchcraft. Now let's go to the next page. However, in order to keep us as far away from any type of witchcraft, we're not allowed to do anything that resembles their behavior, witchcraft behavior. אפילו בדברים הקשורים למעשה החקלאות והראייה וכיוצא בהם, even if they have to do similar kind of things that they do that we would do in agriculture or when we take the sheep out and things like that. For instance, kila'ain, right? Not to mix different species together. There was a form of avodah zarah. כוונתי לכל מה שאומרים שהוא מועיל כוונתי לכל מה שאומרים שהוא מועיל ואיננו נובע מהעיון במדעי הטבע. Says, what do I mean by this? Anything that people think, right? You see this a lot with athletes. Athletes, they have these special rituals that they do before a game. Why? Because one time they had a really good game, and so they try to reproduce the exact things that they did before their next game to have the same kind of luck that they had in the previous game, right? All these kind of superstitions, right? So he says any of these things, right? That they think, is beneficial. But there's no scientific backing for it, right? All this is an extra, is what we call darkei ha'emori, the ways of the Amorites. Meaning, even if it's not a known form of ritual, a pagan ritual, if it's some sort of ritual that you do in order to derive some sort of benefit that doesn't make any logical sense, it's not based in science and in reality, right? It's forbidden to do them because midarkei ha'emori, from the ways of the Amorites.
So would that even be like you have a lucky dollar or something? It's almost like this dollar is lucky, so we keep it.
Yeah, I would say so in a way. Yeah.
So I mean, going off of that, just because I said dollar, I was going to say something like lucky pair of underwear or something. But then could you make the argument like the Rebbe's dollar?
But once you wash it, it's not lucky anymore.
Yeah,
you washed away all the luck.
Like the Rebbe gave dollars. Could you even see that?
That's different though. I'm not a fan of these things, but even that, it's kind of like over there. It's like a new business opens up. Sometimes I like to go to a new business, and I say, I want to buy something. Like a beracha. I want to give like a beracha. It's like the opening of your first dollar that comes in, and in Be'ezrat Hashem, inshallah, you should have many more transactions, right? It's not a ritual. It's a way of supporting business. It's something for the beracha to apply on. So while I would usually say these kind of things is best to stay away from, the dollar from the Rebbe I don't think is such a big deal. If you view it the right way, if you view it as a lucky charm, I'm going to hang this and therefore I'm going to make a lot of money. But hanging it and seeing a dollar in front of you is a motivator to make money, right? For instance, Jim Carrey, he always talks about how he used to always carry in his wallet a check for $1 million that he made out to himself, right? And having that check, encountering this $1 million in his wallet every single day is kind of what motivated him to become very successful as an actor, and eventually he had enough money to cash that check, right? So specifically that dollar, these are like tricks that you can play for you as motivation, but not to see it as some sort of ritual or some sort of it has special cosmic powers that are going to inflate your bank account and and so on. So, right? So any kind of these rituals that you do to derive some sort of benefit that is completely unrelated to reality and science, these are all called darkei muri, and you're not supposed to do them. But their effect seemingly it has to do with some sort of like magic power, sigula. You always see them selling sigulot for all sorts of things. All that is avodah zarah. It's midarkei muri. It's forbidden. Zeu shene'emar v'lo tilchu b'chukot hagoy. Right, and this is the mitzvah that it says not to go in the ways of the goyim, even though it's not a specific ritual of worship. Right, their ways is always they're always evolving, making new rituals. Stay away from all of that. And this is what the Chachamim refer to as the ways of the Amorites. Zot mishum she'elehem se'ifim mima'asab mechashvim. These are the habits of those who perform magic. Sheken elehem devarim she'en gzarim higayon tivi. And they have no connection to physical reality. So how do you know if something, some sort of ritual or action is midarkei muri or not? Huh? So look at what he says. He says something really interesting. הם אמרו במפורש, כל שיש בו משום רפואה, אין בו משום דרכי אמורי. Right? Anything that is done for the sake of medicine is not considered דרכי האמורי. כלומר, how does he explain this? שכל מה שהעיון במדעי הטבע גוזר הוא המותר. Let's say there's some sort of ritual that some tribe, I don't know, some tribe does, and it actually brings benefit to them, and it's the actual medicinal properties that they discovered in some sort of plant or something, right? It says if it has medicinal properties to it, then that ritual that they do is not considered darkei muri, it's considered medicine, it's considered science. V'hu mutar, and this is permissible. You're allowed to do it. You could learn medicine from the nations, right? But it needs to be proven that it works.
Yoga, it's a fine line, right? Because additive, some people could see it as avodah zarah, but some people see it as medicine. Some people think it's.
I'm not maspeak baki in yoga.
Me neither.
I know a lot of yoga is just like stretching and meditation and stuff. I know some forms of yoga actually kind of perform some sort of ritual. So there's.
But then there's not like a positive framework for someone to identify. It's pretty much based on someone's
Intentions?
So let's see.
kavanah.
So let's see.
Pretty much.
Question where says sometimes
The kavanah in the jungle is different to the kavanah in the desert.
it could be that the kavanah in the jungle, was started as something medicinal and then just continued. Like 300 years later, people don't know, right? The scientists that they had 300 years ago, and they practice it, and it works, and it heals people, right? They have healers that know how to put certain potions together to heal someone. How do you know if it's witchcraft or if it's medicine? Where do you draw the line?
Well, for example, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like for example, what's called like the double negative. What's called the double negative experiment?
Double slit.
blind,
Yeah.
For example, this thing where they like you take some let's say that they give a prepared 10 samples with medicine, and
Yeah.
one is just
Oh, the placebo. Yeah.
that's the word. So it's pretty much like what I'm trying to get is what's the framework for you to do
That's
things,
actually a very good question.
but do not
Like how do you know they're not being healed because they believe that this heals
the
them?
belief system, because it's different.
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. But I think he may answer that question. All right. So whatever makes sense, scientific sense is permissible, mutar, ומה שאינו כן, and what doesn't make sense scientifically is forbidden. לכן כשנאמר אילן שהוא משיר פירותיו, right? It says in the Talmud, it says there's this tree that keeps dropping its fruit. תוענו באבנים וסוקרו בסקרה. He says you pile up stones around it and you paint it in a certain color. הקשו על מעשה זה. They said, what is this? This looks like superstition. הקשו על מעשה זה ונאמר, בשלמה טענו באבנים. He says, okay, one thing I understand, you fill it up with stones, you make it stronger. כי הכי דלחוש חיליה. Right? אלא סוקרו בסקרה, but you cover, you paint it in a certain color. מהי רפואה כאביד? What science is there behind that? All right? הרי התברר שסימון בעוכרה אדומה וכל מה שדומה לו בכך שאין טענה הגיונית הגוזרת אותו. So they say, there's no problem, filling up with rocks, but the painting, that's already superstition. So therefore, you're not allowed to paint it. We do actually now know that it's not a problem. You see many times they paint the geza, what's it called, the bark of the tree, because it repels certain mosquitoes and infestations, right? That color repels the mosquitoes. So where do we see? How do we know if we should do this or not? אלא יהיו קשים בעיניך הדברים שהתירו, says, אל יהיו קשים בעיניך הדברים שהתירו דוגמת מסמר הצלוב ושן השועל, and so you shouldn't see certain things that in the Talmud they permitted that look very bizarre, such as a nail in the tree, or hanging the tooth of a fox, right? כי באותם זמנים חשבו שהם תוצאתו של הניסיון, because in their times they tried this, they experimented with it, and it seemed to work. So how do you decide if something is scientific or not? Because we don't always understand how science works. It says, if you perform an experiment repeatedly, over and over, and it turns out that it works, then it's considered mishum refuah, even if you don't understand the logic behind it. However, if it's just some sort of superstition and there's no scientific backing to it, there's no, there's no statistical analysis of repeated experiments, then it's considered a superstition and it's forbidden. So,
can you say something's just widely accepted? You could make an argument for that? Because if like everyone's doing it.
It is to be empirically proven. You come across this tribe somewhere in Africa or in South America, and they have some sort of ritual that they do, and they claim that it brings some sort of benefit. Right. So, okay, is there any statistical backing to this rain dance working? Right? Then maybe there's a science behind it. Mostly you'll find that it's just a superstition and doesn't do anything. It works just as often as it doesn't.
But for example, for these stories to show up or to appear in the on the Shas, it has some validity at the end, right? Maybe not as
It means they thought it worked, but later on, further experimentation showed that it didn't work.
But maybe then after you like you read this what's this Megillah, no, not Megillah, this like legends, so to speak. and then take a different, because they are a part of the Shas. If someone wants to study
Yeah.
Torah, they're gonna need to read it.
That's fine.
And make it.
Let's read it. And he says, don't, how do you call it? Don't be too makpid on them. Science wasn't fully developed in their time as it was in Maimonides' time, and science wasn't as developed in his time as it is today. What's the difference between superstitious rituals, which is darkeh muri, and something that is mutar? Is if it can be backed by science and statistics and repeated trial and statistical analysis. Basically, what he's saying is follow the science, stay away from unexplained rituals that seem like superstitions, and if there's something specific that you encounter that can be that you can experiment and see that it actually works, then you can figure out the science behind it after. But it's obviously if it's working, there's something scientific to it. Stick to the scientific method.
But for example, we get a lot of bad PR for like when people do kaparos and like people are going around looking at Jews and they're like, what are they doing? That looks like crazy.
By the way, this minhag of kaparot,
Yes.
even in the Shulchan Aruch, it explicitly says midarkei muri, the ways of the Amorites. And then some try to say, no, it's only darkei muri if it's a white chicken, but if it's not a white chicken, or the opposite, I don't remember. Anyways, there is no halacha in requiring to do kaparot. I don't do kaparot. I wouldn't even eat the chickens that they do for the kaparot because it's to me it's safek avodah zarah and it's a sur b'hana'ah. So I don't do kaparot. The Shulchan Aruch says don't do kaparot. It's best to avoid doing kaparot. And the Rema over there says no, we do kaparot. And right, he said yeah, he's the one that says no, it's only the muri if it's like a white chicken, but. Well, there's no requirement to do it. So why get into that? Why? The religious Jews, I'd say about 95%. Yeah. Most people do. Okay, actually, today they don't do it as much. They do something called pidyon kaparot, where instead of doing kaparot, they pay a certain amount of money. Just give tzedakah. That's really the idea. By the way, some people try to justify, say no, even though it's not explicit, we do see that there was a big increase in slaughtering of chickens around the time of Yom Kippur, right? One of my teachers, who I really respect, Rav Zini, he tries to prove from that there was an ancient minhag of kaparot. I don't think that's good proof, because there is the minhag to feed the poor, but right before during all of Aseret Yemei Tshuva, and chicken was the most available and cheapest meat that you can feed people. And so yeah, so people ate chicken. We know a lot of people ate a lot of chicken before Yom Kippur, and I don't think that necessarily there had to be minhag kaparot for that.
There is a ritual in the African religion, that they do the same.
Kaparos?
Yeah, Yoruba.
There you go, Darkei Muri. You just proved it. I just proved it.
It's certainly not looking good.
It's very, very common, something in Cuba.
So many people would like to say, oh, they must have learned it from us. I'd say, no, we probably learned it from them, right?
It's very ancient, these African religions. So. Yeah. So even in Portugal, when they do the colonization of the African countries, the Yoruba was very common. So we still find people doing things like that once in a while.
All right.
On their background.
Today we know, first of all, there's no need for it. There's no requirement in halakha to do kaparot. The Shulchan Aruch itself, the Mishneh Torah doesn't bring it at all. It doesn't. It's non-existent. In that book that you have in front of you, 1,000 chapters detailing all of halakha. You won't find one halakha saying, talking about, doing, chicken over your head, right? The Shulchan Aruch mentions it and it says best not to do it. Why? Why get into it? Even if it's just safek midarkei emori, why?
Yeah.
What does God want you to do on Yom Kippur? He wants you to do vidui. That's the mitzvah of Yom Kippur. What does He want you to do on Aseret Yemei Tshuva? He wants you to do tzedakah and chesed. Do all that stuff, right? That's what's going to bring you kapara on Yom Kippur, not the chicken.
When people say me make mitzvot in Tzarfat or Saret,
Yeah.
because I was only. Some people say me maybe you are crazy.
Yeah, great. Just take the chicken, go like that.
Yes.
It is crazy.
It's very crazy.
It's first of all, whether it's Darkei Muri technically or not Darkei Muri technically or not. Okay, you know what? Let's say it's Safek. What it definitely is Sa'ar Bale Chaim, and is abusing an animal, and that is a sur. Mainly, if they slaughter it first and then do it, no, but they don't. They do it and then he's all dizzy and they slaughter it. All right. What's actually she is, but yeah.
Two questions, basically, in regard with the first one, for example, is lighting a candle for a yahrzeit, which is a really similar practice like the Catholic Church. Lighting candles
Yeah.
for the saints is like a memory.
Yeah, but you're not doing that to bring any benefit. It's more like a memory kind of thing. So I wouldn't say that's Darkei Muri.
No?
Some things the Catholics and everything they get from the Jews before when the Roman they come to this
Yeah,
the
it could be.
temple they make his religion Jewish.
But that's not a ritual that's meant to bring you some sort of benefit or prosperity, right? They're not lighting a candle saying, if you light, I don't know, 3 candles, then you're gonna have a good day, right? That's
Actually, they have some rules on that, like for example, like some saints, they do that. You do the quantity of things to bring, whatever.
oh, okay. Then don't do it.
They do, yeah.
Then don't do it.
Like, yahrzeit of tzaddikim.
Yahrzeit of Tzaddikim. Okay, is it just to commemorate the Yahrzeit of the Tzaddik, or are you doing it to bring some sort of spirituality from the Tzaddik? That's not Darkei Muri, that's Avodah Zarah, right?
Well, sometimes they give numbers like 1836 multiple because
You're playing bingo? What?
no,
What numbers?
18 is the number for Haim.
Yeah.
So these they believe this is like a matria for certain words, so they want to make it's like a
lucky number?
yes.
Yeah. Okay, so there's no such thing as lucky numbers.
Oh.
There are numbers that we like, right?
Like 14.
Right, I love the number 144. Why? Oh, 12 square. It's just, I don't know. I think it's a beautiful number. I like it. I'm Moroccan. We love the number Chai. Why? Because we love Chai. We love life, right? So it's a nice way to, someone's trying to haggle with you on a price. It's 15. So let's make it 18 Chai. There's no, as long as you don't associate any real meaning with it, right? Then it's fine. Like who says when you're bidding for something you have to do it in multiples of 10 or 50? Do it if you want to do it in multiples of 18. That's fine. Some do it in multiples of 101. Michael, right? You like the gematria of your name, so you suggest the gematria of your name. I don't even remember what mine is. It's like 300 and something.
The second question is about, for example, Aristotle and Plato. Here we say about studying science and the academy of Aristotle and all the way down till today is something, as you said here, we need to study. But for example, the other side, Plato, which is very mystical and very the ideas a little bit more not like science but mystical. If that is copied into, for example, let's pretend Judaism, that could be like following the ways of the Emorim or taking wrong ideas.
So they say, Chokhmah b'goyim ta'amin, right? The wisdom of the goyim, believe. What's the wisdom of the goyim? What's Chokhmah? Chokhmah is science, right? Anything that could be substantiated, it doesn't matter if a Jew wrote it or a goy wrote it, right? If it's science, it's science, right? It says Torah b'goyim al ta'amin. Torah, it could be understood as proper behavior, or it could also be understood as metaphysics. If the metaphysics of Plato, right, fits in with your understanding of Torah, right, you can take themes, borrow themes from different, but first you have to have your fundamentals very, very well substantiated. For instance, reincarnation is, I think, is that Platonic?
Yeah.
I think it's considered Platonic, right? That's something we don't accept. Rabbi Saadia Gaon rejects, right? We don't accept that in our metaphysical understanding. But we're straying, right? We're straying. Because what Darkei Muri and Avodah Zarah is talking about primarily is a behavior, right? What actions can you do? What actions to stay away from and not do, right? So there's the obvious rituals that are, we'll say, codified Avodah Zarah, which is an Isur Deoraita to do, and they're explicit. And there are other things that aren't codified that have a hint of superstition to it, and that's what the Chachamim call Darkei Muri. And there's a mitzvah deoraita to stay away from Darkei Muri. What differentiates between what the Chachamim refer to as Darkei Muri and what they refer to as Derech Refuah, right? If it has a logical explanation to it, and not a metaphysical explanation, if it has a logical explanation to it, then it's Mishum Refuah. Mishum Refuah, medicinal or scientific. If it doesn't have a logical explanation to it, but repeated experimentation shows that it works, it means we haven't figured out the science behind it yet, right? But applying the scientific method to it, we see that it works, then it's Mishum Refuah, and it's not Darkei Muri. All right, and that's the difference between Avodah Zarah and Darkei Muri and believing in God and being rational and not following superstitions and all sorts of rituals.
What I have there is like the stone statue is like lion, bear, or something. That is Avodah Zarah.
Sorry, I don't understand.
The lions stones they make for put in your house or something like that. Does come to Avodah Zarah?
Like a stone of a lion, like a statue of a lion. For the sake of
the front of the house, like a big lion.
On the gate or something.
Exactly like.
Over Yerushalayim.
No, you mean for, how do you call it? Specifically what's forbidden is if it's a specific Avodah Zarah, if it's done for the sake of Avodah Zarah, or a statue of a person.
A statue of a person?
Yeah.
Because the one of
the ultimate Avodah Zarah is worshiping man.
Anything is on there, like that's why when I read that, I don't know, I think and I say, don't make nothing wasn't it heaven.
Yeah, right. So specifically, the stars, the sun, and the moon also is forbidden. Again, the Mitzvot of Avodah Zarah, there's 52 Mitzvot of Avodah Zarah. What exactly is permitted and forbidden, that's in Hilchot Avodah Zarah. You have a few chapters there on on Sefaria and Chabad.com, you could see it in English, Hebrew and English.
What about statues of a person to like commemorate something? In the US, we have statues of like presidents.
No, we don't do that.
It's totally other.
Yeah, we don't do that.
Is it able to Torah?
Yeah.
I think it's forbidden.
For example,
I mean, they don't worship them, right? So I mean, you're allowed to pass by one, right? But just you don't make one, or even commission one.
Even if it's just for like artistic purposes.
I think if it's a person, I'm not 100% sure, but I think if it's a person, it's forbidden. But I'd have to.
Yeah, I used to play Warhammer.
Uh,
I used to play Warhammer, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
That's like
Warhammer, I think.
That's my favorite too.
Hundreds of, you played Warhammer as well? Ah, man.
But like, what about paintings of a person? You could make the same.
I'll tell you the truth. I'm not 100% sure. I need to review the halachot avodah zarah.
This is really interesting.
I don't want to tell you exactly what's forbidden and what's mutar, right? The point of Sefer HaMitzvot is to go over the mitzvot, like in general, right? The point of the Mishneh Torah is to go into each mitzvah. What are all the details? I don't know all the details of every single mitzvah yet. Hopefully one day. Huh? All right. So you have a few minutes until Rav Noren comes and starts. Bye, everybody on Zoom.
Painting. Like it's
Something kadosh.